These days, everybody says Black excellence. You see it in captions, hashtags, and shirts. But here's the truth: Black excellence didn't start on social media. It starts with a generation of people who refuse to give up. Today, I want to remind us that Black excellence is not just a trend, it's a mission, a calling, a responsibility, and a legacy. Now, Black excellence isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about how we rise from systems designed to hold us down and still shine brighter than ever. Look at our stories, from chains to champions, from silence to global influence. Every fight we stepped in, sports, music, politics, tech, business, we dominate. And yet, many of us still doubt our own power. That's why the message is needed. Because Black excellence isn't just something we post, it's something we live. It's how we educate our kids, it's how we build businesses, it's how we support each other and redefine success in our own terms. The world copies our creativity, but they can't copy our strength, because our excellence was forged in fire, and that's why it lasts. We can't just celebrate it once a year during Black History Month. We have to build it every day. This isn't just a goal, right? This isn't a goal just to make it loud. We shouldn't just make it out, right? The goal is to lift others while we rise, to create generational wealth, ownership, and legacy that can't be erased. So anyway, just watch these videos, right? I'll be back with the closing. Do not forget, you must watch these videos to the end, right? Because you need the information in it, and then credits to the creators on those videos. I'll see you in the end. I'll see you in the end. I want to see you watch the end, and kindly subscribe, right? I'll meet you at the end.
Child, imagine having a head start and you still losing. But here's the plot twist. You think you winning. My grandma would say, bless their little hearts. 'Cause white supremacy really think it's winning. But baby, they made the people that's gonna beat it. Now stick with me. You ever work out with weights on, put on a weighted vest and ran laps? That's what racism did. Put weights on our backs, weights on our ankles for generations. But you know what happens when you work out with weights or a weighted vest? Oh, y'all know. It makes you stronger, skilled, faster, resilient. Baby, the weights didn't break us. They trained us. Baby, they've been sitting back with a 400-year head start, kicking their legs up, thinking mediocre is a trophy. Meanwhile, we've been in the trenches, baby, getting it out the mud, creating, learning, building. And baby, that's why our excellence is a transferable skill. That's why we keep showing up better, smarter, louder. And baby, this ain't just talk. Look at the wealth gap. That's proof right there. The system is stacked. But despite that, Black entrepreneurship is still growing. Black businesses are still fueling communities, our art, our music, and culture. And the world, baby, they still trying to catch up. Child, they rig the rules, they cheat, they rewrite history, and they still losing. Bless their little hearts. You got Karens and Kens watching everything we do like it's a mystery. It ain't no mystery. It's resilience. It's resistance, love, family, community. That's Black culture. That's Black excellence. So yeah, it looks like we're going to have to keep those vests on for a little longer. 'Cause baby, the race ain't over. But they done messed up. They underestimated us. Big mistake. Black history is the movement. Every day. Happy Black History 365. And I'll see you next time.
I don't care what they call me. I know who I am and I know what I stand for, and I stand for black excellence. So anything that goes against black people being excellent, I'm not in agreement with. And if that makes me anti-black, then I guess you redefining what it means to be pro-black. If you think that being pro-black means being in agreement with degenerate behavior and being in cahoots with things that damage the community, no, then I don't want to be that. I don't want to be anything that is negative when it comes to the black community. No, I don't want to be in alignment with that. So if you have to say that I'm any of these buzzwords, I'll take that, because I stand for black excellence. I stand for black people working at their full potential, being the best they can be, not making excuses. That's what I stand for. And anything that goes against that, I am against it. And I don't care what nobody feel about that. I stand 10 toes down in that. I've been the same consistent person since I got on this app in 2021. It's been the same since I got on here. If it ain't about black people doing good, black people excelling, black people being the best that they possibly can, I'm not in alignment with it. And I never will be. And I will not apologize for that.
You ever notice how when a black person starts talking about liberation, like real liberation, not reform, not representation, but freedom, the world calls them dangerous? Yeah, that's what happened to Frantz Fanon, a man who didn't just talk about revolution. He studied the psychology of oppression and said out loud what colonizers never wanted us to understand. Violence built the system, and sometimes only violence can dismantle it. Frantz Fanon was born in Martinique in 1925, a French colony at the time. He was raised on an island where whiteness wasn't just power, it was aspiration. He saw black people taught to hate their own reflection, and it shaped everything that he became. He fought in World War II for France, believing in their promises of freedom and equality. But when he came home, that uniform didn't protect him from racism. He said, "I discovered my blackness in the eyes of the white man." That moment, that awakening, turned him from a soldier of empire into a critic of it. Fanon became a psychiatrist, and he started seeing colonization not just as a political system, but as a sickness. He said that the colonizer and the colonized both suffer from it, but only one profits. He studied how oppression seeps into your mind, your body, your self-worth. He wrote about what it means to live in a world that tells you that your skin is a problem and your liberation is a threat. His first book, Black Skin, White Masks, exposed just how deep that psychological violence runs. He said the black man wears the white mask because survival demands it. But freedom? That all starts when you take it off. Then he moved to Algeria in the middle of their war for independence against France. He didn't stay neutral, he joined the revolution. He treated the wounded by day, and by night, he wrote what would become one of the most important books on liberation ever written, The Wretched of the Earth. In it, he said colonization isn't ended by conversation. It's ended by confrontation. He called violence a cleansing force, not because it's noble, but because it breaks the chains of submission. He said the colonized man finds his freedom in and through violence. And that's the quote that made the world clutch its pearls, because he said what everyone knew but was too afraid to name. Fanon died young, at 36, of leukemia. But before he died, he warned the world of what would happen if newly independent nations copied their colonizers, instead of freeing themselves from them. He said the national bourgeoisie steps into the shoes of its former European bosses, and the people are still exploited. He predicted neocolonialism before we even had a word for it. So look around today, debt traps, resource thefts, Western corporations looting Africa under the flag of development. That's Fanon's prophecy playing out in real time. He told us that freedom isn't just political, it's psychological, and it is economic. It's the right to not be ruled by somebody else's imagination of you. Frantz Fanon was a revolutionary, he was a doctor, a writer, but above all, he was honest. He told us the truth about the violence that built this world. He said that healing can't happen without accountability, and sometimes accountability isn't peaceful. They call him radical, but all he did was describe the disease and prescribe the cure. And the reason his name still scares people is because he made one thing clear. You can't reform oppression. You have to remove it. Root and all. Say his name. Frantz Fanon.
How many times is it going to take for us to realize that we have no allies? How many times are we going to have to remember that integration was the worst thing for us to do? How many times are we going to let people trick us with their technology into thinking that we have allies? How many times are we going to open up our door for these energy vampires? How many times are we going to let them in and they refuse to take off their shoes at the door? How many times are we going to let them into our backyard and invite them to the cookout? How many times are we going to let them tell us that we have no culture while stealing all of our recipes? How many times are we going to let tethers, whether they're black or white, tell us that we need to invite them in while they exclude us? How many times are we going to let tethers, whether they're black or white, link up together and try to spit in our face while begging us to integrate and to believe in them? Unity. How many times is it going to take for them to piss on our heads and for them to tell us it's raining for us to believe or recognize that these people are liars, mimics, parasites? We call that dis-ease. How many times is it going to take for us to realize that no matter what we do, no matter what we create, no matter how we try to get them to understand, that they just don't get it because they have no souls? How many times is it going to take for us to realize that if we are, so lost, so confused and whatnot, whatever, like maybe there's a reasoning for our not remembering? How many times do we have to remember about re-education camps? How many times do we have to be told history about how Native Americans, are what they were called before they just got that name in 1924, were classified, reclassified, and were sent to schools or whatever and taught the language? How does that even make freaking sense? How many times are we going to let these people play in our face? How many times? How many times are we going to let people who are not even on our landmass come over here and tell us that we don't know what we're talking about because we speak a different language? We speak a European language while they speak Spanish and they speak Portuguese and French. How many freaking times are we going to let these people who went to these re-education camps to learn their freaking language tell us that they're more native than us because of what? Pseudoscience? Racist ideology? Brought to you by these people that no one can even figure out where they came from. The closest we get to it is they came from these caves. How many times are we going to listen to people who don't even know where they came from? We came from Europe. Yeah, but where did you come from before that? Before your mutations changed the skin tones of all the people that you went and mimicked and integrated into those societies, and then you kept doing it, and then you kept changing whatever because we kept inviting you to the cookout. How many times are we going to let vampires in? How many times are we going to look at people who are described as having woolly hair, copper colored skin, and they don't even know how copper colored looks because they're colorblind? How many times Are we going to let these people beg us to march with them, beg us to integrate with them, beg us to let them just take everything from us? How many times before we say enough is enough? They show us every single time who they are. And it's not about skin tone, because guess what? Race isn't real, goofies. Race isn't real. But these cave beasts, they know that. They know that. How many times am I going to scroll through lives and see people who are not our friends linking together to come against us? And we sit there and give them passes like, no, yeah, we gotta all work together. We gotta all work together. How many times do we have to fail before we realize that we have no friends? They don't respect you. They don't respect me. They don't respect our culture. And it's time for them to go back to where they belong, wherever that is. But anyways, if you enjoyed my little rant today, I'm about to do my hair or whatever, you want to ask more questions, put your questions in the chat or whatever. You know, this is a love space. I don't see color because I'm colorblind, because I'm a mutant. Bye.
What's up, y'all? I had such a fire conversation earlier this week. I just wanted to get on here and share it with y'all. So essentially what we were talking about was the standard of excellence that is attached to being black. I was taught by my parents that everything you do to the best of your abilities. Every single day you show up, you give 115%. So for me, that looked like studying for exams until I knew all the information. When I was hooping, when I was practicing until I got my jump shot right. And even when I was doing chores around the house, like if I didn't do chores correctly, I had to do them again. So this standard of excellence was already being instilled within me at a very young age. And as a kid, I didn't necessarily understand why my parents were so hard on me. But as I grew up, what I realized is that they were trying to teach me how to be a successful black woman in America and how to navigate and excel in professional spaces. Because the reality of the matter is, when you're black and you're navigating in spaces in which you're the only person who looks like you, whether the other people in that room realize it or not, a lot of times they're waiting for you to fail. They're waiting for you to quit, and they're waiting for you to mess up. And not only are they waiting for those things to happen, they're actively working towards measures that allow for those things to happen to you. So when I get to medical school, I'm already realizing that a lot of these people that are surrounding me don't think that I deserve to be here. First 2 years of medical school, exams are pass fails, but I was still studying to get the highest grade that I personally could possibly get. Or I'll have classmates, I'll be like, oh, this attending's super chill. He doesn't really expect much from students. That's okay. I'm still going to chart check on my patients. I'm still going to do reading before rounds. I'm still going to be prepared for rounds. If I'm preparing for a case in medical school, I'm preparing to know any question it is that the attending may ask me. Or, oh, you don't actually have to go to that meeting or that lecture. Nobody cares if you actually show up. Trust me, if I don't show up, they're going to know that I wasn't there. But the God I serve is so good that he'll take what the enemy was using for bad and turn it into a good situation. So while people are working so hard to keep us out of particular professions and making sure that we fail and making sure that it's hard for us to succeed, what they're really doing is making us excellent at those things.
What if I told you that Uncle Tom was never supposed to be an insult? In fact, the real-life man behind the name, Josiah Henson, was a freedom fighter who helped over 200 enslaved people escape. Let's set this record straight. Josiah Henson was born in 1789 in Maryland. He endured brutal treatment. He saw his dad get beat and sold away, and he was forced into back-breaking labor. But even through all this, he still had one goal: freedom. In 1830, Henson escaped slavery with his wife and children. They traveled over 600 miles on foot to Canada. Once free, he didn't stop. He founded the Dawn Settlement, which was a thriving community for free black people. And he also built a school to educate former slaves. But here's where history twists the truth. In 1852, Harriet Beecher Stowe, she wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was a novel inspired by Henson's real-life journey. The book was meant to expose the horrors of slavery. And in the original story, Uncle Tom was a brave, selfless hero who protected others, refused to betray his fellow slaves, and even died resisting his enslaver. But over time, racist minstrel shows distorted the character, turning Uncle Tom into a weak, submissive figure. someone who just accepted his oppression. And that's how Uncle Tom became an insult. But the truth, Henson was anything but weak. He was a leader, an abolitionist, and a man who risked his life to help over 200 enslaved people escape to freedom. He built a future for his people when all the world wanted to do was erase them. It's time to reclaim his name. Uncle Tom was not a traitor. He was a hero. Say his name, Josiah Henson.
Black excellence, at least the way we use it now, is a scam. Sorry. Before y'all get mad, I'm not saying black excellence is a bad thing. It used to be this celebration of blackness and how we are excellent in our different facets and multiplicities. But it's now just turned into like a different iteration of Du Bois' talented 10th. It's now just being tossed around like this idea that some of us are just better than others, and it's hurting everyone around. On one hand, what was once a celebration and upliftment of other black folk in a white hegemonic culture has now become a comparison game, where if you're not the very best compared to that other black guy, no one cares. And black folk are doing this as a community to each other. We see this in comment sections all the time. Oh, well, this one person got an A on their test. Well, I got an A on my test too. Well, I know somebody else who got a better A. Well, I know somebody else who went to Harvard. Da 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 da. And the accomplishments of that one person have just like gone out of the window. It's starting to promote this idea that if you're not the best of the best, then it doesn't matter. And it's starting to impact people's self-esteem. But on the other side, if you are that epitome of black excellence, the higher you are, the harder you fall. Eventually, this excellent black person will make a decision, be it a conscious one or just a mistake, that will deviate from this perception of black excellence. And the backlash is horrifying. And I can say this now pretty comfortably, despite years of being this epitome of black excellence. The minute people found out I was single and pregnant, I became a statistical disappointment to the black community. And I did so many things right. I advocated for my community. I got my education, got my master's degree, have a really stellar job, and all that means nothing the minute I made a choice other people wouldn't make. Because I, this representation of black excellence in the community, have fallen. And it's not just me. Malia Obama was caught smoking a cigarette, and the way y'all talked about her, y'all might as well been Republicans. You're a black girl with a platform, and every single day you look all put together and yada yada yada, but one day they catch you in a bonnet, you're toast. This idea of being black and excellent has become dehumanizing. You're no longer a person in multifacetedness. You are a representation of the community, and what you do is apparently reflective on everyone. So you better not mess up and make them look bad. What was once a celebration of excellence have now become a way to keep us in line with the white hegemonic culture. What was once excellence as defined by black people for black people is now excellence as defined by the white dominant culture. And if you've never been a part of that excellence, then you're not worth anything to begin with. And if you're a part of it and you fall, then you're worth nothing now. It's not excellent anymore. It's just control. And I'm not saying don't be excellent. I'm not saying don't excel, don't be great. But buying into this constant idea of being black and excellent is starting to become more burdensome than I think it's worth. At least if we don't criticize it and nip it in the bud now. But I don't know.
Why do white people resent black excellence? Let's talk about it. Not all white people are racist, obviously, but there is a specific subset for whom black excellence seems like a personal affront to them, right? It really bothers them when black people succeed. The 13th Amendment emancipated enslaved black Americans in 1865, and then the Jim Crow laws kind of wrapped up with the passing of the Civil Rights Act in 1964. So if we do the math, that's about 61 years in which black Americans were able to strive for success in any sort of meaningful way without like the constraints of the law pulling them down. 61 years. If we compare that to white Americans who besieged a land already owned and occupied by indigenous Americans, we'll put that around 1620 when, the Mayflower came here, then that gives them about 425 years to establish success in this country. 425 versus 61. If we compare those two fundamentally very different time spans, like how much did white Americans actually do in all that time? If we are to compare even the poorest and most underprivileged of white America to black America generally, it is clear that white Americans are born way past the start line, right? By that I mean, by nature of being white in American society, you do benefit from all sorts of privileges. And to be frank, you're not exhausted by the horrible experience of facing racism on a daily basis, right? You do have a ton of privileges. So I imagine existing in this bubble of privilege that you totally deny. The existence of black people for whom success is like second nature, when it comes so easily and so readily, even though you've only had 61 years to achieve it, I imagine that's exhausting and frustrating. I imagine it makes people feel super, super inferior and hurts certain people's tiny, tiny little egos. And what do they blame that deep, deep psychic pain on? Well, of course, DEI and critical race theory and affirmative action. So I guess the question is, what might help those white Americans who just so strongly detest Black excellence? Like, what will help you? And for that, I would suggest like a lot of therapy, like a ton of therapy. And I would also just suggest that we open the schools, right? We teach people history. Yeah, maybe? Okay, bye.
If we had slave owners about 5 generations ago, and 25% of white people in the South were slave owners, then that means pretty much every white person in the South had an ancestor that was a slave owner, pretty much the majority. So to say that racism isn't a problem anymore, after only 5 generations where each generation they pass down these racist views to their children, just makes you completely blind. In order to make this country less racist, we have to first acknowledge that racism exists. We can't just avoid it. We can't just say, I don't see color, stop talking about racism, stop talking about the biggest elephant in the room, and it'll go away. We need a deep understanding of what white supremacy and white privilege is, and how every white person is benefiting from this. And once we can do that, then all of the working class, we can all unite. We can all stop having somebody to hate, and instead, we can start hating the top 1%. The ones that are turning us into slaves. Ones who are taking all of our money that we're working hard for. The ones benefiting off of our labor and barely doing anything themselves. Until we can all come together as one and say, enough of this hate, enough of me not listening to my brothers and sisters that are suffering. Let me hear them out. Let me hear what I need to do. Let us work together. Then we cannot drive change in this capitalist country. We cannot fight for the working class if the working class is not united. The whole system is designed to make sure we're not united because there's powers in numbers. So you need people fighting each other so that they don't realize how powerful they actually are together, and they learn how to love each other. You guys do realize that the top 1% has so much money that if they wanted to, they could supply every single person in the United States with a home. But what are they doing with all of that money that they will never spend in their lifetime, that their great, great, great grandchildren will never spend in their lifetime? And if you are one of those Christian nationalists, I have a Bible verse for you. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God.
Here's a fun fact that they don't want you to know about. Black women are the most educated demographic in America. They'll tell you all these statistics about crime. They'll tell you every time a black man becomes a statistic, but they won't tell you that black women are disproportionately educated. How about the fact that black women start more businesses than any other group of women? Black women represent 42% of new women-owned businesses, 3 times their share of the female population. Majority black women-owned firms grew 50% from 2014 to 2019, representing the highest growth rate of any female demographic during this time frame. Yet for every dollar a white man makes, a white woman makes 79 cents and a black woman only makes 62. And despite the fact that black women are excelling in the face of adversity, they are still more likely to be negatively portrayed in the media and online than any other group in America.
Bitch, I thought you knew. I thought you knew that the reason your coworkers hate you and your supervisor has turned against you is because you're fucking them up. Code for traumatizing them. When you overperform, outperform, solve problems that they haven't even yet identified, you make people look incompetent. You make them look mediocre and unqualified for the job. And if you look like us, that's risky business. So once they figure that out, they're not going to flee or fawn. They're going to fight, which means fight for their survival so they can sustain their position and continue to hold on to their job. So when they fight for survival, that means your ass got to go. You know, they're going to try to demean you, discredit you, make you look unprofessional, mob you, give you the silent treatment. They're not playing. Why? Because they're fighting for their life. Their trauma response is to fight. So I needed you to understand that it's not just that you're making them feel bad, you're fucking them up. You're traumatizing them. And they have only one legitimate response, which is to get rid of you. I hope you understand that better now. Their trauma response is to treat you bad, to make you feel wrong, to make you feel incompetent and insufficient, so that either you will leave or they will set you up to fire you. And that's the only legitimate response to have to trauma. You need to think about your response to their trauma response. And that's what my posts have been all about.
One of the most disturbing Black history facts that they don't want us to talk about. In 1918, a woman named Mary Turner was lynched. Mary was 8 months pregnant at the time of her lynching. She was lynched for expressing how upset she was that her husband was lynched the day prior. Her husband's name was Hayes Turner. Hayes Turner was sent to lynching because they said that he was an accomplice in murdering a very well-known white farmer. Mary Turner was upset because she knew that her husband did not have anything to do with it. She was so upset, and rightfully so, at 8 months pregnant about losing her husband, that she threatened to take legal action against the mob who lynched her husband. This threat enraged the white mob, and the way that they took Mary's life was so inhumane, I don't even think I could explain it on this app. But I'll do my best because the story needs to be talked about. While lynching was typically done with the person standing right side up, they decided to hang Mary upside down. They then removed her clothes by setting fire to them. While Mary was still alive and hanging upside down, the mob took a large and removed from her belly. They then took their feet and stepped on the crying while it was on the ground. After all of that, the mob took their weapons and filled her body with holes. And yeah, this was 107 years ago. That's not a long time. Happy Black History Month.
Welcome back, everyone. So from now, when you say Black excellence, don't say it like a hashtag, say it like a vow. Because the mission isn't about showing off, it's about showing up. Our ancestors started the fight, we are the continuation. Black excellence is not a moment, it's a movement. And it's also a mission. I see a lot of you actually post these things, but you guys don't even live in the reality of it, right? And that's what we're talking about right now. Do you resonate with any of those videos you just watched? I'd like to see your thoughts in the comments, right? Have you subscribed? Are you going to share this video? Do you like this video? Right? Make sure to always come back on Global Gist with BJ. It's me, Blessing, your friend, your sister. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.